And I can tell you this, this is pure evil. What we saw down here today is pure evil.
16 children living in squalor, a home filled with garbage and feces. 16 children kept out of school. 16 children living in a 12 by 12 room.
16 children. A 12 by 12 room. Cockroaches, garbage, human feces smeared on the walls. And the smell. The sheriff said he couldn't get it off him for days. You already know what I'm about to say. When law enforcement finally stepped inside that Vinton County, Ohio home, they didn't find a family. They found a crime scene that made seasoned investigators break down. The state's attorney general called it pure evil.
As you heard, agents from Ohio BCI participated in the search warrant this morning with deputies from the Vinton County Sheriff's Office. And when they went into that residence, 16 children were removed from that residence. And I've been doing these types of cases for a long time. I spent a big portion of my career dedicated to prosecuting these types of cases. And I can tell you this, this is pure evil. What we saw down here today is pure evil. And I have to commend the deputies from the Vinton County Sheriff's Office and our agents from Ohio BCI and I, who went into really kind of one of the worst environments that I've seen in my career, and were there for those children in their time of need. Those children are currently being treated at hospitals throughout the state, and this is, as you heard, an ongoing investigation.
We have currently in custody 4 individuals: Gary Ciders Sr., Gary Ciders Jr., Christina Ciders, Elizabeth Ciders. They're being held on 17 counts of child endangering, a felony of the 2nd degree because it involves serious physical harm. We are, it's actually involves 16 children. We have 17 counts because we couldn't even talk to the kids to get names and contact information. So it'll eventually only be 16 counts. These 4 individuals will be arraigned tomorrow at 10:30 at the Vinton County Court of Common Pleas. I want to stress that our focus right now is on the safety of the children.
Not alleged evil. Not possible evil, pure evil. And look, we've seen House of Horrors cases before. But this one pulls back a curtain on something much darker than just 4 adults who let 16 kids rot. It forces us to ask a question the justice system doesn't want to touch. Was the mother a monster, or was she the first victim they silenced? Now here's where it gets interesting. Elizabeth Ciders, 33 years old, mother of all 16 children, plus conjoined twins who passed away in 2022. She was just a kid herself when this nightmare started. 15 years old when she married Gary Ciders Jr., an adult man in the eyes of the law, and she was a child bride. Her parents signed off on it in Mason County, West Virginia. 2 months after that wedding, the first baby came. Then another the next year. And another. Nearly a baby every year for 18 years. You do the math and you realize her body never stopped being pregnant. She gave birth to 3 sets of twins besides the conjoined pair. That's 18 pregnancies, not even counting the ones we might not know about. And I need you to stay with me here because this is the part nobody talks about. A girl handed over at 15 into a closed family unit, moving into a house controlled by her in-laws, Gary Sir and Christina. Already a tight unit, then the babies, one after another. You know, just like I know that no teenager makes that choice freely, without pressure, without indoctrination, without her mind being broken down. Her own brother posted online that she was indoctrinated. He said, "My sister just wrapped her life up due to indoctrination." And that word indoctrination. That's not poverty. That's not bad parenting. That's a systematic dismantling of a human being.
This is a Facebook post from a man claiming to be Elizabeth Ciders' brother. And wow, look at this. "My sister just wrapped her life up due to indoctrination." Is she indoctrinated? Did this family bring her in and manipulate her mind? Did this family force her into this life in some way? Did they brainwash her? And that's what the brother seems to be saying, this indoctrination. He says it's 100% real. He says 20 kids. I don't think there's 20 unless there's some other ones we didn't know about. 20 kids and younger than me. The math equals immature piece of blank man involved. I don't know how close the brother and sister were. Like, it seems like he's finding all this stuff out. I met this dude a couple of months ago. Shook my hand like a baby would. Super soft hands. Definitely never worked a day in his life. I should have took him out that night. So her brother clearly blaming the husband / father of these children for what's happening here. I was thinking about it, but my sister, I was happy to see, been 15 years, you lost touch with your family, followed another, look what happened. So I guess she kind of broke away from her family, and there was no interaction back and forth over all these years.
And this is where I want to slow down for just a minute. Just me and you. Look at the before and after photos of Elizabeth. The undated Facebook picture her mother posted shows a girl with blonde hair and eyes that have light life, some kind of spark. Then you see the mugshot. Dark hair, dead eyes, hollowed out. Not the dead eyes of someone caught, the dead eyes of someone who had her spirit erased long before the cops ever showed up. That image hits me in a way that's hard to explain. It feels personal, not because I know her, but because it tells me everything the court files won't. That woman in that mugshot looks like she already served a life sentence.
It's an undated Facebook photo of Elizabeth next to her mugshot. And when I look at this picture, where I focus on, I focus here. I focus here on the eyes. On the undated Facebook photo that her mother posted, I see someone who's alive. I see life. That's what I see in those eyes. The shot of her on the right, like obviously the hair is different. There's some other things different. Dead eyes. What has she been through, or what has happened to her? And those dead eyes, I'm not blaming that on being arrested. I'm blaming that on whatever was happening behind closed doors.
And I'm not excusing anything. 16 children suffered unimaginable cruelty. But you cannot look at those two photos and tell me she was the architect of that horror. She was the engine they used.
16 children from a year and a half to 18 years old, all living there. And really what we're trying to figure out, I think, in this story and in this case and in this prosecution is the family dynamic. Because you had 4 adults living in there. 4 adults. You had the Ciders, the senior Gary Cider and his wife, Christina, their son, Gary Jr., and then the mother of all of these children, Elizabeth Ciders. So you've got 4 adults living there, but what exactly is the dynamic between them and among them? Like, is one person making all the calls here? Is it a group effort? Like, how did they end up in this situation? Right? Like, it makes no sense what you would do. You would keep having children and then you would subject them to this. Is it just evil? Is it poverty? But it's beyond poverty because these children were not even educated. Now, part of that dynamic is the mother, and that's Elizabeth. She was a child bride, married very, very young, and the youngest person of the 4. And I think that in unraveling and peeling back the layers of this tragedy and what happened to these children, we've got to understand her role in all of this and her perspective, because I don't think it's as clean cut as everyone else. She's the one having baby after baby after baby and then putting him in this room. Like, why? I don't understand. I want to take a look at her in her court appearance, because I think just by looking at her and listening to her attempt to speak, I think reveals a little something about her. So let's take a look at her first appearance after this. All of this is uncovered. All 4 of the adults are cuffed. They're brought in, and now it's time for an appearance in front of the judge.
So let's lay out the breadcrumbs the system ignored. The Ciders clan. Gary's sister, Christina, Gary Jr., and Elizabeth. They weren't from Vinton County originally. They moved there from Gallia County around the time Child Services started poking around. In October 2021, the Gallia County School District filed truancy complaints against Gary Jr. and Elizabeth. 6 older kids hadn't been to school that entire year. The court tried to serve them papers and couldn't find them. So they dismissed the case. Just like that, they dismissed it. 6 children vanished from school, and the state's response was essentially a shrug. Then the family relocates, slipping across county lines into a rural area where houses are spaced apart and nobody asks questions.
The school district in Gallia County actually filed complaints in the juvenile court there against Gary Jr. and Elizabeth, saying 6 of your children, and they were separate complaints for each children, have not been to school for this entire school year. That was in October of 2021. And it was for that 2021-2022 school year. The complaints told the parents, your children are habitually truant. They have missed more than 72 hours of school so far this year. And under Ohio law, they are required to go to the courts and report this if the children aren't in school. The parents, if they are found to have violated the law, can be subject to fines and possibly child neglect charges because kids belong in school. I think it's important to point out that you can only be truant from school if you are registered at school. So these children, the 6 older ones, had to have been registered at this school at some point in time. So the court, likely through the sheriff's office, that's usually who serves documents for the courts, went looking for the family to serve them with these complaints, and they said they couldn't find them. So in January 2022, about 3 months later, the complaints were dismissed, and they said in the paperwork, we can't find them to serve them. So right now, this case is being kind of stalled.
And is that what we think was happening? Were they moving around from location to location?
I had been told over a week ago that they left Gallia County, that Gallia County Children's Services had been poking around, that they became aware of this family. And I was told by more than one person that is why they moved away from Gallia County. And it appears from everything I've been able to track down that that's around the time that they moved from Gallia County to the neighboring county of Vinton.
And look, you already know how this works. A family that wants to hide moves to where the grass is high and the neighbors mind their business. And the system that's supposed to protect kids just closes the file. That's not a failure of a few caseworkers. That's a design feature of a system that treats rural families as invisible until the smell gets too bad. Now, here's what they don't want you to know. When law enforcement first went to that house on Omar Street on June 30th, they weren't looking for the children. They had a search warrant for evidence of another crime. The Attorney General himself made that clear. Something else was happening in that home. Something serious enough to bring BCI agents and deputies to the door. And they still haven't told us what that original investigation was about.
Well, it's going to a grand jury. They only have grand jury every month and a half or so out there in Vinton County. This is a small county. It's not like the larger counties in Ohio where they have grand jury every day of the week. They may have to convene a special grand jury for this. The prosecutor had said before this gag order was issued that they were going to have an update on that possibly within a couple of weeks. He said that last week. Whether we actually get an update now, we'll have to wait and see. That gag order, of course, is being challenged in the Ohio Supreme Court. It's very broad. But it goes to a grand jury. And at that point in time, and the investigation will continue. At that point in time, we'll see if additional charges are added to this. Because keep in mind, Vinny, they first went there looking for evidence of another crime. They went there because they had a search warrant looking for evidence of other crimes. And they found the children and then got a second search warrant because of the children. So there's been a lot of confusion about that out there, that they went there for the children. The Attorney General was very clear and said that wasn't the case. And so we still don't know what is going on with that original search warrant. What brought them to that home on Omer Street?
A gag order is in place, and yes, it's being challenged in the Ohio Supreme Court. But for now, the details are buried. You feel that? That's the familiar stench of a cover-up, not a conspiracy theory kind. The institutional kind where authorities control the narrative so you never get the full case file. They found 16 children living like feral animals, some unable to speak, an 18-year-old who couldn't spell her own name. Livestock were kept in better conditions, the sheriff said.
As I was saying, most of our livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. It was extremely high presence, I'm sure, of bacterial and human feces. It was just a disgusting scene.
Can I ask you, both of you, what did you feel like walking through there? Not necessarily what it looked like or the description, but what was going through your mind?
So it was disgusting, even where the kids weren't. I would think it's typical. Most law enforcement have experience with homes in a similar fashion. A large number of people, though, the children were kept in a roughly 12 by 12 area. It seems like it's where they've spent the most of the last 4 years, and that's what it looks like. In a weird way, you're hit with two emotions. There is joy when we realize that we're about to change 16 lives for the better, but you're also it's hard.
Were there any signs of sex?
I didn't actually go into the room where the kids were. I just looked through the door. That was yesterday. I can still smell. I can't get the smell. I cannot get the smell off of me or away from me right now. We were just talking about that a little while ago. And then we were talking as a group about some of the evidence we looked at today where they actually discovered the kids and found the kids. And it's not that different than those old commercials you used to see of like kids in Africa, like just where they're covered in bugs and squatting and had that like distant look in their eyes. It's terrible. I mean, it is absolutely terrible. And again, we've got to make sure the kids are safe. We've got to make sure they're placed in good, solid therapeutic placements. And we have to hold accountable the people who are willing to do this to their own family.
When you rescued them, were they able to talk and communicate?
That's one of the challenges we're facing during the That's one of the challenges we're facing. That's why there's kind of contributes to a lack of information. It's one of the investigative challenges we have to face is that they are limited. They can communicate, but it's extremely limited, and some not at all.
Exactly are the four defendants related to each other? I don't want to make an assumption here.
Grandma, grandpa, father, and mother at this point. That's what we know.
To acquire the dates of birth, were you able to get hospital records, or were some of these children born inside that home?
So there's no evidence that any of the children were born inside that home, although that is something that they were initially investigating once they discovered this. But they were able to obtain that from outside sources.
Okay, and the first victim, it shows that they are 18 years old. Why is that in a child endangerment charge?
Yeah, I think that's good. Good question. The young person's mental capacity, she is, we believe, developmentally disabled. Couldn't even spell her name at 18, and so she is developmentally still a minor.
Livestock. And still, the focus on controlling what we hear, you have to ask why. And what about the dynamic inside those walls? The 4 adults were all charged with the same felony child endangerment counts. But the day of her first court appearance, Elizabeth tried to speak.
Do you understand the charges against you? I need you to answer out loud because we're keeping a record. All right. Doesn't mean you agree with them. I just need to know that you understand what they are. You have the following rights. You have the right to retain counsel even if you intend to plead guilty. You have the right to a reasonable continuance in these proceedings to secure counsel. You have the right to have counsel assigned without cost to you if you are unable to afford counsel. You have the right to bail if the offense is bailable, and we will discuss bail momentarily.
Hold there for 1 second.
You are not required to make a...
One thing I want you to look at, and some people pointed this out, on her left arm, there appears to be some sort of mark on her arm. Does that mean anything? Did it happen after the arrest? Did it happen while she was living in the home? Is there a story behind it? I don't know. But it is something that everyone noticed at this first appearance, just the physical appearance. And if you look at the dynamic, that's her and her mother-in-law. Neither one of them looks happy in that moment. Interesting to see how they react to the reality now. Think about it, they've been doing this for years. This is over the course of 18 years and nothing has happened to them. Nothing has happened to them. And now all of a sudden you're locked up and you are not free to leave. And the rest of the world has now learned about what's going on behind closed doors. Let's continue to watch.
Statement at any point in these proceedings, but anything you say can and may be used against you. You have the right to a speedy public jury trial. Do you understand those rights? All right. The jail has applications for court-appointed counsel. If you wish to fill them out, they will send them back to the court. You have 4 pleas available to you. A guilty plea is a complete admission of your guilt. A not guilty plea is a complete denial of your guilt. A no contest plea is not an admission of guilt, but it is an admission to the facts that underlie the indictment. If you plead no contest, the state would give me a statement of facts, and it would be up to the court to determine whether or not you are guilty based on those facts. If the facts were not sufficient, I would find you not guilty. A plea of no contest cannot be used against you in any subsequent civil or criminal proceeding, but you would have a criminal record if you were convicted under a no contest plea. A plea of not guilty by reason of insanity must be made in writing. Do you understand these pleas? And how do you plead? Stop. First of all, I want to remind you of your right to remain silent. This is not the time for you to argue your case. These are serious allegations, and if you are unsure on what to do, I will enter a not guilty plea for you until you can consult with counsel. Okay?
She's got a story to tell. You could tell in that moment, right?
The judge cut her off, told her to stay quiet, entered a not guilty plea for her. Her attorney later said something that should shake everyone. He stated they still weren't his client who was a victim herself. She doesn't characterize herself as a victim, he said, but the investigation into whether she was subjected to duress, intimidation, or threats is ongoing.
To say, take a look. At this point in time, we are still not sure, at least at my office, whether my client is a victim herself or not. I have previously stated that she does not necessarily characterize herself as a victim, but the investigation from the prosecutor's office, the investigation from my office is still ongoing. And this is interesting, right? A victim, right? Obviously, the children are the victims, like we get it. But what he is saying is my client may not consider herself a victim, but maybe she was, based upon the circumstances, based upon the fact of when she became a bride, maybe what she may or may not have been subjected to from the other members of the Ciders family. Remember, she's marrying into the family. The mother, father, and the son are already a unit. She's the one who comes in. She's the one having all the babies. I get it. But at the end of the day, is that what she wanted? Was she subjected to any sort of duress, intimidation, threats?
That's not a legal tactic. That's a defense attorney looking at the same dead eyes we saw and realizing the public might need to know the truth about how a 15-year-old bride became the mother of 16 children locked in filth. Was she brainwashed? Was she kept in line by fear? The family unit was already a closed circuit when she joined it. Gary Jr. grew up under Gary, Sir, and Christina. Their rules, their control. If they said the kids stay in that room, does a woman who's been there since childhood have the will to defy them? I'm not saying she's innocent of everything, she said. Actually, let me rephrase that. The evidence shows she was present. She was the biological mother. But present and complicit are two very different things when you're inside a cult, like household for 18 years. And this is the part that connects to something much bigger than this one horror story. We keep seeing these cases pop up. The Turpin family in California. The house in South Florida where parents locked an adopted child in a box in the garage. And every single time, the institutions that are supposed to catch this, schools, CPS, family courts, they look the other way or they just can't find the family. In Vinton County, a county of about 13,000 people, nobody had any meaningful contact with the 16 grandchildren. Elizabeth's own mother posted a birthday message on Facebook in 2020, and then nothing. The day the search warrant hit the news, she shared the articles on her page. But was that shock or guilt? Did she know? Did she try to intervene and get blackballed from seeing the kids? We all knew this. We all know that when a family unit goes dark and pulls away from public view, something terrible is usually festering, and the system is built to react, not to prevent. You get outrage after the rescue, not safety before the crime. Now the children are in foster care, scattered across counties because one small county can't handle 16 traumatized kids, some who cannot communicate. The prosecutors are moving to a grand jury, but that grand jury only meets every month and a half in Vinton County. Meanwhile, the gag order keeps the original reason for the search buried, and Elizabeth sits in jail with 3 other adults who are likely pointing fingers. I predict she will separate her case from the others. She'll have to. She's the youngest, the most isolated, the one who might finally tell the full story. But here's the thing. Even if she does, the system will still resist seeing her as anything but a perpetrator. The Attorney General's office already branded everyone inside that house as pure evil. They're not in the business of nuance. They want convictions. And a female defendant who is a child bride and possibly a victim of domestic mind control. That complicates the clean narrative. It makes people uncomfortable. It forces us to sit with the possibility that evil is not always equally shared. So I leave you with this. What if Elizabeth Ciders was the first child in that room? The first one broken, used up, and silenced. Her babies didn't stand a chance because she never had one. That doesn't undo what those children suffered. Nothing will. But if we can't distinguish between a ringleader and a captive-turned inmate, then justice isn't blind, it's just lazy. And that's the open wound here. The anger should be aimed at the entire apparatus that let 18 years of pregnancies and neglect pass without a single meaningful intervention. You tell me in the comments, was this woman a victim the system failed when she was 15, or is she exactly where she belongs? And what does it say about all of us that we're only hearing about it now because a search for some other crime accidentally uncovered 16 souls nobody was looking for? I want your thoughts. This case is far from over, and the uncomfortable truth is still buried under a gag order and a whole lot of institutional shame. Stay angry. Stay awake. Justice for those kids must come first, but the full picture demands we look at the mother's dead eyes and ask who killed the light in them.